For the first time in Ero Season 9 and for the fourth time in Ero history, we will have a sprint, which is kind of different compared to the normal racing format, because as you might know, when it is a normal race weekend in Ero, it's just short qualifying and a race being directly after it. Now, we have two races. One of them has a prize pool of 8 points to the championship. And this is what will happen today. As today, we are in Netherlands for Ero Pc F1 Dutch Grand Prix, which will also be a sprint. My name is Wojciech Śmigowski, I am the Ero Pc F1 commentator and the owner of the entire thing, as Ero Home of League Racing is going through its Season 9 flawlessly, at least in the first years that is. Let's go into the game, because I see some interesting weather going on. I mean, I do not see any kind of rain just yet. However, we can see that something is definitely going on, with most of the drivers going out on track, being very cloudy indeed. And this makes me wonder if we are actually going to experience some rain today in the fourth qualifying session of the season, in the first weekend with the sprint this season, as Julio Figueira has already been disqualified for blocking the pit lane, but at least he will have the chance to recover his starting position in the sprint race, as he drops into the lost. Currently in the championship, we've got 3 different winners of the races. The first one is Cameron Dowd, who unfortunately is going to be a reserve for the remainder of the season, thanks to joining one of the esports teams, as it is visible on the Twitter now. And on this round 2, we've got Tony Ritchie winning the Grand Prix, as we are watching the Season 8 champion right now, and on the Spanish Grand Prix the winner was Drake Dempsey. So the question is, who is going to be the 4th winner of the race this season? Or actually, is there going to be someone winning again today? That is the question we'll know the answer on in about 1.5 hours, that is. As first drivers are already on their laps, and these include, for example, Luke Mills. He's currently on his hot lap through the Sector 1 and is going to set the benchmark for us today. Unless Hugo Nelson is right behind him. We've also got Arjan Bilbas between the Red Bulls, and then behind the second Red Bull is the Ferrari of Jonathan Foss. Looking for more drivers who are on their laps. Tony Ritchie currently going through Sector 1. As currently in the championship, the leader is Drake Dempsey with 61 points, exactly 10 points ahead of Tony. As both of the drivers are now on hot laps. On third place there is Ryan Grob, who nearly won last week in Spain. However, on the last lap he's been overtaken by Drake Dempsey, and thankfully his tires survived, unlike team buyers in Bahrain. However, we all know that both McLaren drivers have potential to win something in this season, at least one race each, as Luke Miller sets a bunker that is 11.2 seconds, but Iron Bibas is way faster with 10.6. Tony Ritchie now approaches Sector 3 with one of the most passionate stands around the entire circuit, as there's plenty of places in Zandvoort, to be honest, to watch the race on. And especially considering it's a short track, you can see majority of it if you stay in the right place. As Tony Ritchie is about to cross the line, it's going to be 10.5, placing him in provisional pole position. Next up, Marvin Moore is currently on his outlap. He needs to watch out for Team Bayer and Ryan Grob, and Ferry Wagner as well, but Ferry Wagner looks like he's backed out of his lap. So looking at Tim's time, as he's about to finish his lap, Drake Dempsey goes first, 10.2 seconds. That's a really, really decent lap time, especially for a bunker, considering the fact that he wasn't able to set even a 10.3 in a practice session just an hour before the race. Grant Grob is now personal pole. Team Bayer goes position number 4, as he is now ahead of both Ferraris and both Red Bulls. Phil Pavlakovic, 13.1, placing himself on the ninth. The reserve driver for PCF2, Shane van Helden, goes 10, 13.2. Daniel Bakalik on the outlap. He is the PCF3 driver racing today with us. And there's also one more reserve of Lucas McGinty. As most of the drivers appear to be going into the pit lane. Especially considering the fact that they've already done the first laps of today's session. The only 4 drivers without a lap time being set are Robertson, Moore, and McIntyre and Bakalik, and of course Julio Figueira, who's disqualified from the session already. In the meantime, Jack Harrington has gone 7th. I believe there was a little bit of help from Daniel Bakalik when it comes to the slipstream. As Fraser is now approaching the final corner, Bakalik will start the lap right behind him. I wonder if these two are having a bit of a teamwork, even though considering the fact Daniel is a bit of a reserve today. Robertson goes 10th with 11.7. We still have to praise Robertson for a little bit for last week's performance in Spanish Grand Prix. Best result of his career, 5th place. There was a little bit of a celebration around Aston Martin, who apart from Milto's 7th place in Bahrain, weren't having too many reasons to celebrate recently. But with Robertson's 5th, well, there's some big points being involved. As now Daniel Bakalik is approaching the Sector 2. Through plenty of corners. Very difficult ones, actually. Both high speed, low speed. Like, low speed is the corner that we're approaching right now. Bit of a hairpin right there. There's plenty of hairpins in Zandvoort in general, and 90 degrees corners. Like the next one, not like exactly 90 degrees, but you know the point. As Daniel Bakalik, about to cross the line now, is going to set probably something in the 11th, and that is 11.4, placing him on the 10th place, so that is a great result for the Aston Martin reserve driver today. Full time he's racing in Alfa Romeo, and considering that he's been a bit famous on TikTok recently with a video where he's done an entire lap on the neutral gear, which of course was a glitch of the beautiful Formula 1 game, but the history has been written. We've seen the first lap on neutral gear, entire lap, let's say that. Now moving on, Bill Buss is currently starting. We've also got Marvin Moore going into 7th. I wonder if he's getting slipstream or is on the out lap, or in lap apparently. He's probably on the in lap, knowing that Bayer and Rob, who are doing great in this qualifying session, 1st and 4th, is about to start the lap himself. You can see there might be a red light going on, but Tim is having 100% of battery on him, and he will deploy it all throughout this qualifying lap, as the top 3 has come out of the pits as well. Tim Bayer is just starting now, braking right after 100 meters board into turn 1, into 5th gear, as we know short shifting is really OP in this game. Then we're approaching this corner, the left-hander that has a big altitude, and you can see that in the elevation change. Then we're having this twisted straight a little bit. Tim Bayer improves himself by 18 milliseconds. It is not enough to even get into position number 3, as he's probably backed out of his lap already. Probably some snap of oversteer into turn, I believe it's 6 for Tim Bayer, and unfortunately we'll have to wait once more, a couple more minutes for better lap time. He's probably trying to burn some ERS, he's trying to recover some ERS. Now Brent Grob also with troubles in the same corner. Led by, for example, Drake Dempsey, who's only 22 milliseconds behind the McLaren driver in the front row so far. However, Drake looks like to be faster around this lap and has not pinned it, at least just yet. And the second flyer, 2.5 tenths up on his lap time. That might be going into 9th really soon. Is it possible with one more braking zone being approached? Drake Dempsey goes flat out throughout the final corner, and we'll see. Is it going to be 1/9 already, or we'll have to wait for the final flyers? Drake Dempsey puts a 10.0, which is enough for pole position, but as we said, not enough to get into the 9s. As Ryan Gropp is starting his lap again, Team Bayer already on his hot lap in the Sector 2, around the 10th up of his lap time, so definitely better, and now ahead of Tony Ricci, provisionally at least. We'll see what was his lap throughout Sectors 2 and 3 very, very soon. He has a Haas ahead of him that is on the outlap. That is probably Marvin Moore, yes, that is. Team Bayer slides, nearly loses it on the exit of the corner, now still on the 4th place. Tony Ricci improved by a 10th of a second, 10.4, placing himself on the 3rd place. Final braking zone, there is a Mercedes ahead of Team Bayer, that is Jack Carrington, and we are going to see his lap time right now. It should be around a 10th better, unless he goes to the pit lane. No, he does not. He decides to continue with the lap, goes second fastest, ahead of his teammate as well, with 30 milliseconds of advantage. What will be the response of Ryan Grob now, I'm wondering? As theoretically showed he's 7 tenths behind, but I don't think so, as he's pushing throughout all of the corners. We'll see about that really, really soon, but I believe that's not it. That's not the lap, as he'll be going to the pit lane for real this time. And we'll still have one more chance in this qualifying session with less than 7 minutes to go though. As the McLaren pit crew takes him into the pit lane. Let's watch the Red Bulls as of now, as Luke Mills is starting his lap. How about Luke Mills? So he's just finishing it. 10.9 ahead of Luke Mills, ahead of Jack Harrington by 8 milliseconds of 8 milliseconds. Also, you have to note that Hugo Nelson has to watch out for Luke Mills a little bit. We know what happened in Bahrain 3 weeks ago in the season opener, with these two Red Bull drivers misunderstanding one of the final laps. Yep, Hugo Nelson makes a wonderful job. Just lets Luke Mills pass. Aston Martin, despite around 10th place when they finished their laps, a bit disappointing, but still, we have to wait for them making these laps. The second flyers with Robertson 13th and Bakali 14th, they definitely expect a little bit better from these two drivers. However, Bakali is really doing good impressions in Pc F1. Just being 45 milliseconds behind his teammate is definitely impressive. He's starting his top lap now. Moving on, Cheyenne Van Hendel on the outlap. Marvin Moore just finished his lap, as welcome Luca Zucchi, our former driver, but unfortunately he's not registered to Ero this season, but good to see him back. As he just visited us for a moment. I believe he's somewhere in the paddock right now. Maybe for the racing, but not quite. As most of the drivers are in the pit lane, I believe both of the Ferrari drivers, they are finishing their laps, so we'll see about that. Jonathan Foss, as we said, he's doing very decent in the beginning of the season now, outscoring Tony Ricci. We have 4th place in qualifying. How about Arjen Bilbas, his teammate, struggling in the season openers, currently doing 10.5, placing him on the 7th. It's quite decent, but it's not ideal for the Ferrari driver who finished 3rd last season. As we know, Jonathan Foss has been providing better results for the Ferrari in all 3 performances this season. It was 6th versus 8th, and it was 7th versus 9th, and now in Spain last week. And last week, we've seen Jonathan Foss stepping on the podium for the first time this season. Arjen Bilbas, meanwhile, DNF'd after a spin and then crashing to the pit lane entry, which is really, really difficult in Spain, especially considering the fact he had no wing. Arjen Bilbas will not will not do a flyer right now. Daniel Bakarik faster than Fraser Robertson, his teammate. As nearly everyone is in the pit lane apart from Cheyenne Van Helden, currently 11.8 from the Haas. as I can see more and more drivers are going out for the final runs. More and more drivers are just about starting their final qualifying runs. I believe it's less than 3 minutes to go in this qualifying. As he's approaching the final DRS straight, I believe he's going to the pit lane without, because he's already set the lap time. Let's look at the final qualifying runs though, as Ryan Grubb is preparing himself for the final run, burning a bit of fuel still, wherever possible. As Team Bayer lets pass one of the Ferraris, thinking he's on the hot lap. However, I believe he's doing one more lap to burn fuel. Team Bayer. McLaren's doing decent already with second and third in today's qualifying session. However, can any of those get Drake pole position's lap time? As is a pole position in 0.8 possible, as Lucas Uchi, who we said he's around the paddock now, is saying in the chat, and I believe this is possible today with a couple of talented drivers on the grid. Apparently, I think the entire top 7 can do it. Or at least go close into the 9s. As Figueira unfortunately left the session again, but I believe he'll come back later to the session. Pawlakowicz goes position number 13. As Shane van Helden retires into the pit lane. This is the final minute of the qualifying. Team Bayer starts his final run. Ryan Grubb decides to burn more fuel, doing the same thing as Tim before. Jonathan Voss on his final run, looking at people who are closer to the line. Arjan Bilbas, that is, starting his lap. On the Red Bulls is also started. There's also an Alfa Romeo of Ferry Wagner starting up as well. Ryan Grubb starting his proper run. Drake Dempsey starting his hot lap right now. Who is finishing apparently? As Tony Rich is on the beginning of his lap again. Fraser Robertson, I believe, who's going 14th fastest. At least he outqualifies his PC F3 teammate for position number 14. Jack Harrington about to cross the line to start lap. Hugo Nilsson starting a lap as well. Everyone is just on the hot lap right now. As the closest one to cross the line is Jonathan Voss, sliding around a little bit, but I still think he can improve his final lap time. We'll see if he'll cross the line in the first place. He will, with a 82 milliseconds of improvement, securing his 4th place. Not enough to get into pole position, or at least the top 3. Daniel Bakalik outscores his PC F1 full-time driver teammate Fraser Robertson on position number 13. This is quite sensational performance from the Aston Martin driver. As Arjan Bilbas crosses the line to get 6th ahead of Marvin Moore at least. Tony Ritchie now on his final run, nearly 2 times up on his lap time, so currently on the 2nd place he is. Remember, there was some controversies with him, Drake Dempsey and Luke Mills in Spain on the lap 1. However, no penalties being applied. Ryan Grubb secures himself on the 2nd. Tony Ritchie stays 5th. Just a single millisecond behind Jonathan Voss, you can see. That is really, really close qualifying, as the entire top 11 is within a second. Fraser Robertson will go to the pit lane. That is the end of the qualifying session today, with Drake Dempsey securing pole position. As we know the story of pole sitters in PC F1, we've seen Tony Ritchie being twice being on it in the Spanish Grand Prix. In Bahrain it was Cameron Dowd who later won the race, and in Japan it was Kamil Komoy. Now we're having 4th pole sitter of the season. Drake Dempsey sets up the best lap in the entire qualifying session, as we are about to head into the 12th lap sprint. And I'm wondering which tires will drivers pick. I believe it will be most likely mediums, as they can handle the entire sprint distance very well. As Cameron just confirming in the chat, unfortunately, he's just about to reserve now. As it is beautiful sunny weather around Zandvoort. We essentially love it, especially in the holiday season. But we're currently in February in real life. Anyways, we're about to see what kind of strategies the drivers have picked on and what kind of tires they decided to race on. And the 12-lap sprint on the line, 8 points to the championship, which may be vital in the end of the season. As we are about to start Dutch Grand Prix. Actually, it's a sprint race for the Dutch Grand Prix. Lights out, and away we go. And that is Drake Dempsey on the lead of the Grand Prix. Very, very calm lead of the Grand Prix, to be completely honest. But McLaren drivers are going to keep this 1, 2, 3 going on. Both Ferraris fighting Tony Ritchie for position number 5. There's troubles for Ian Bilbas, who's now behind Luke Mills. However, I believe this start was relatively clean, with Tony Ritchie trying to defend his 5th place from Luke Mills as well. So the senior Red Bull driver is on his form again after a Spanish Grand Prix where he's been doing great for the first half of the Grand Prix. This time he's putting Tony Ritchie under pressure. It is Drake Dempsey and Ryan Gropp and Team Bayer who are leading the Grand Prix. Ferry Wagner already out of the session, and that brings us a first safety car already of a singular DNF. I don't know what happened there, we'll probably know that within a minute. However, Ferry Wagner not the greatest start to this weekend. He will start last in today's sprint. As throughout this first lap of the Grand Prix, Drake Dempsey leads, and we will see the strategies of the drivers. As Jack Hamilton is the only one to start on softs. We can see that essentially all of the 16 drivers are within DRS, apart maybe from Fraser Robertson, who has been spun around. In turn 4, Julio Figueroa uses this opportunity to pit, probably for the soft tires. Same applies to Fraser Robertson, I believe. Yeah, there's a wing change though. So something must have happened at the back of the grid, as Fraser is just putting on new mediums. So that is interesting strategy choice from the Aston Martin driver, who's also overtaken Julio in the pit lane. But we know it's mainly due to the fact he didn't change the front wing. I don't know if the Aston Martin pit crew forgot about that, or did he get no damage at all, and he can continue on the new medium tires. And it's at least one lap of tire age less. Drake Dempsey, you can see he's burning fuel quite a fair bit, being very, very close to safety car. Not the greatest memories considering one of the Hungarian Grand Prix in the other league, where he essentially got crushed by teleporting one. As if you really want to join the league, why don't you just sign up first? I can see more and more drivers just joining the race lobbies for no reason at all, without even realizing it's a league race. Yeah, thankfully he's gone now, and maybe he will register to the league into the future, but I mean, how can you not know? But there is a race at 4 PM UK on Sundays in here. Anyway, Ferrari, Red Bull and Bakalik on the front row, and it's a good day. Unfortunately, this did not happen. However, both Ferraris in the points for the sprint. Both Red Bulls in the sprint if it was a main race, and Bakalik just out of the points. But behind Cole Pavlakovic and Hugo Nilsson will with guaranteed seats for Season 9 after a couple of decent performances in Season 8. As everyone has now rejoined the queue, I also see Harrington has decided to change tires now and has gone into the softs, so he believes that it will pay off. That he will go to the pits, change the tires into the new softs, and then maybe proceed to gain a lot of positions from it. Also, I'm wondering what the Mercedes pit crew will decide. As welcome another driver trying to join the session without realizing it's a league race. I'm actually going to post a Twitter regarding that, as the safety car is in this lap. I mean, 2,000 people on the Discord got pinged, so I don't know what's going on. But let's maybe focus on the racing action now, as Drake Dempsey is about to lead the safety car restart. Behind him there is both McLaren drivers who will look for that one more point to the championship. McLaren doing great teamwork throughout the season so far, and now are going onto the 2-3 and the sprint again. That is 13 points to the championship, which may be vital when it comes to the constructors. Drake Dempsey goes on now, and it's a safety car restart being made by him perfectly, around half a second ahead of Ryan Grob. As he is now leading the safety car restart, green flags are on. We are racing again as Drake Dempsey leads into turn 1. Then we've got Tim Bayer and Ryan Grob. And the third and the second, Tim Bayer has to defend from Jonathan Foss a little bit. Leading this train is of course Drake, but we may see Tim Bayer just being separated from it sooner than later. Daniel Bakarikis unfortunately spun round into the hairpin, as Ryan Grob is about to challenge Drake Dempsey into the turn 6. You can see how close he is. Just 0.2 of a gap between these two drivers. It is really, really close. Drake Dempsey about to be under pressure from Ryan. He's actually under pressure from Ryan. We can see that it is really, really close between these two drivers. And for that one championship point, Ryan Grob may just go for it and send it, and then maybe have a better starting position. Ryan Grob using all of his ERS now. I believe this might be a chance where he goes for a move down the inside to the turn 1. No, he's not. Drake Dempsey is using... Still, he's using plenty of ERS, but he's got a bit more. He's 20% more ERS than Ryan, which might be vital for the final laps of the race. Drake Dempsey having a little bit of a moment, going wide into turn 3. However, that does not change the situation. Lucas McGuinty fights Fraser Robertson into the hairpin, using a little bit of ERS. But we can see McGuinty putting Will Pavlakovic under pressure as well. The gap is really little, with 0.3 of a second just of the gap. Ryan Grob will definitely look for some sort of redemption for the Spanish Grand Prix, where he lost the win on the final lap. As we're about to have DRS on now. With Tim Bayer setting up a fastest lap. He's just rejoined the top flight after what it seemed to team being out of the DRS sooner than later. Now he's just 0.4 behind, as Jack Harrington and Julio Figueira both making moves throughout the midfield. Mercedes drivers still have 6 more laps to get more places in for them, as Kul Pavlakovic now fights Lucas McGuinty. Still it's the same place where they have been so far, 10th and 11th. However, Jack Harrington is approaching really fast. With Lucas McGuinty looking for space around the outside, down the inside. Team Bayer might be... Oh, there is a spin of Hugo Nilsson in the background meanwhile, as Lucas and Kul are fighting side by side into the hairpin, and Kul has defended his position successfully. However, the spin of Hugo Nilsson, means that Jack and Julio will have one less driver to try to catch up and overtake throughout the sprint to get some points at least. As we can see, Jack Hamilton is approaching close on Lucas McGuinty already. Arjen Bilbas, what is going on with the Ferrari driver? We don't know, but he's gone flying literally on the exit of turn 1. I hope that was just a singular incident, but that was really big teleporting from Arjen Bilbas, as Lucas McGuinty again very close to Kul Pawlakowicz, but will not make him offense, especially considering what happened in Spain with an incident in the race with Luke Mills. Minor touch from the gearbox, and it caused an entire disaster for Luke Mills, who's been going for like a podium that week. As Lucas McGuinty looks for moves, looks for the space to make a move on Kul Pawlakowicz, knowing that he's losing more and more time to the top 8 and potentially the points paying positions in the sprint. However, Lucas does not look like making a move right now, with Kul defending very well indeed, and making him lose time as well. Ryan Grob having DRS on Drake, but I don't think he's going for a move right now. Maybe on the final lap of the race he will go. As we can see, the two parts of the DRS chains. First part is of course the top 8. That just has to go like they are and cross the finish line a couple more times in the same order in order to get the points they get right now and not worry about anything else. As Shane van Helden fights Daniel Bakalik, the two reserve drivers are side by side in turn 3. That was really close between these two, however, keeping it respectful and clean. Daniel Bakalik has lost a place to Shane van Helden, as both are being caught up by Hugo Nilsson. Going to the midfield, it's still the same situation. Lucas McGuinty tries to fight Kul Pawlakowicz throughout the entire circuit. Tries to find the space to make him move, but will he do so now? He has no ERS, but he's really close to Quill. Just 2 tenths of a gap. But Quill has got plenty of ERS, he can play with it. And not worry about Lucas's DRS assistant. As Quill has gone a little bit wide, but that does not help Lucas. He's about to have DRS on, but with no ERS and no battery, apparently, he's not going to do anything right now. Can Jack Harrington go for a move on Lucas McGuinty? He's also got no ERS. How about Julio Figueira? None as well. Professor Robertson barely any. As Kul Pawlakowicz has gone a bad exit, but Lucas McGuinty did not capitalize on it. We're still waiting for that move from the Alpine driver. Racing on the Alpine for the 3rd time in a row in PC F1, doing very well indeed as a reserve driver. As Jack Harrington may be going for a move right now on the inside. He's going for it. He sent it. Just having a half look on the inside. Not enough to make a move. However, putting Lucas McGuinty under pressure, making him lose even more time. But he will have to wait at least one more DRS zone in order to make a move. Decent starting position on the sprint that isn't for the Mercedes, even though it's just 1 place out of the points. And the main race, that is, of course. As Jack Harrington nearly spins out right now. Lucas McGuinty is freed from the pressure of Jack, and now can just attack Kul Pawlakowicz, but the problem is he's too far and he has got no ERS to use. As you can see, Luke Mills has also been separated from the top 5 now DRS train, which may even go to the top 3 DRS train, with Jonathan Voss being 8 tenths behind Team Bayer, which is a bit too much in order to at least get closer and make a move. Ryan Grob about to attack Drake possibly. He does not have plenty of ERS. Drake has 46% of it, which is plenty considering how quickly the battery goes out when deployed, how quickly the battery is deployed throughout the circuit. whereas on the other circuits you can regain around a couple of percents per lap of ERS. Here you really cannot do so. As Harrington having problems, that is a spin from Jack Harrington, and he lost the places all the way to P13. And Daniel Bakalik, well, he probably hasn't decided, but still made it and replicated what Jack Harrington has done. Julio Figueira goes for a move down the inside on Fraser Robertson for position number 11. Still no points, but at least he's ahead of the Aston Martin driver for the race. Luke Mills also has been overtaken by Arjan Bilbas in the meantime. I'm wondering if Ryan Grob will actually try and send it on the inside line on the last lap for one more point. Drake Dempsey already has a point for pole position, which he has to bring into the line and finish the race, regardless of the position, as Jack Harrington spins again. Drake Dempsey knows that winning this race will set him a bit comfortable in the championship. As he's used all of the ERS now for the final lap of this race, and I believe this secured the win for the Alfa Romeo driver. Tony Ritchie, goes for a move down the inside on Jonathan Foss, and that should be done for position number 4. And one more point in the championship is for Tony Ritchie. He'll probably not overtake neither of the McLaren drivers, as there's also a fight between not Marvin Moore, but Sean Van Helden and Hugo Nilsson. Sean Van Helden just lets past the Red Bull driver. As this is the last lap of the sprint, I believe there will be a couple of moves going on. As we could see, for example, Bilbas on Mills, as Jack Harrington also retires in the pit lane, Nilsson Van Helden, Ritchie on fourth. There's a couple of overtakes throughout the entire circuit. But the most important one is, well, probably Ryan Grob is not going to overtake Drake Dempsey anytime soon, even though he's using all of the ERS now. We might see a move from Marvin Moore, even though from that far it's not possible to be made. He will be close to Luke Mills, but not close enough in order to at least try and make a move. As Drake Dempsey is about to cross the line and win the sprint, 8 points in the championship. These are guaranteed. Ahead of Ryan Grob, Tim Bayer, Tony Ritchie and Jonathan Foss, On the 6th, we have Arjan Bilbas. Then we've got Luke Mills and Marvin Moore racing to the line. Kurt Pawlakovic at the first pointless position. Ahead of Lucas Maginty, Julio Figueira, Robertson, Nilsson, Van Helden, Bakalik. That was the sprint around Netherlands. As Drake Dempsey proves that he's got the winning material for at least for this race and maybe for the championship. Julio Figueira is driver of the day though in the sprint. Well, position number 12. 11 that is, sorry. We'll see about that in the main race. However, Drake Dempsey, 8 points in the championship. Then we've got Ryan Grob, Tim Bayer, Tony Ritchie, Jonathan Foss, Arjan Bilbas, Marvin Moore, Luke Mills and Marvin Moore. The gap between these two is just 1.5 tenths of a second. About the points, Pawlakovic, Maginty, Figueira, Robertson, Nilsson, Van Helden, Bakalik, Harrington, and Ferry Wagner. As we are about to start the main race, the Dutch Grand Prix. I'm wondering what the tire strategies will be like for today's race, especially with the sprint tires, with the sprint being on. There's, I believe, one more set of tires for the sprint weekends. As we've also been confirmed that It's going to be all dry all the way throughout today's Dutch Grand Prix. Unfortunately, we'll not see any rain, unlike in PSF1 last week, which brought us one of the wildest races of the season, I believe. Also, before the race starting, it was a minor touch that caused a disaster. That's what I meant. As we're about to start the main race, the Dutch Grand Prix, Drake Dempsey on pole position ahead of both McLaren drivers and Tony Ritchie. This top 4 is looking really interesting, as it's going to be lights out and away we go again here in Zandvoort. Drake Dempsey again leading the start really well indeed. Tony Ritchie looks for a move to make a move on both McLaren drivers, and he touches with Tim Bayer, and Tim Bayer drops into the last place. That is the disaster for the start of the weekend for the McLaren driver. At least Ryan Grob goes on to the second. Tony Ritchie might have got wing damage with Jonathan Voss overtaking him on the hairpin. Now they are side by side throughout the end of the sector 1. Ryan Grob will probably be on the comfortable second. Tony Ritchie defends his third place really well indeed. However, the turn 1 incident between him and Tim Bayer might be investigated by Rabbi Melko later on, as I think Tim Bayer is going to rejoin the group really soon. You can see he's gaining already 2 tenths per section of corners. It's like 3 tenths, 4 tenths, even more and more throughout the entire lap. Ferry Wagner, he's already on 9th place despite DNFing on the first lap. What is going on? Of course, in the first lap of the sprint, Julio Figueira fights Fraser Robertson wheel to wheel, nearly side by side. There's a free wide behind Julio right now. Hugo Nilsson comes out on the first place out of it. Jack Harrington and Fraser Robertson will also side by side, but the Aston Martin driver lost 2 places now. Drake Dempsey sits the fastest up of the Grand Prix, leads the race comfortably ahead of Ryan Grob and Tony Ritchie. As Marvin Moore fights Arjen Bilbas, this time they are wheel to wheel, and Marvin Moore will use probably these mediums to an advantage of his, as there's a touch between these two. However, no major consequences. Marvin Moore may just go around the outside, however, not the best traction of all he's got, the Haas driver. But I think he's going to gain a place on Arjan anyway. Side by side, Arjen Bilbas has to watch out, back out a little bit, and lost the place to Marvin Moore, and will probably lose to Kul Pavlakovic as well. There's no better place to make a redemption than on your home soil for Arjen Bilbas, that is Netherlands, as we are on the Dutch Grand Prix today. Arjen is not doing the worst, like in Spain, for example. He's doing quite decent with the 6th place, however, this might be not what he expected. At least before the season, that is. As we can see that Tim Bayer has already nearly rejoined the DRS zone of Daniel Bakarik and Cheyenne Van Helden. Kul Pavlakovic looks for a move on Arjan Bilbas into turn 1, and he's done it. He will have the space down the inside, going to leave room for Arjan Bilbas. But Arjan Bilbas fights back. Will Pavlakovic nearly a touch here again, involving the Ferrari driver. Arjan Bilbas defends his position though. Fraser Robertson drops all the way into the last. Not the best way to prove that 5th place wasn't an accident, unfortunately. But we know Fraser Robertson will probably come back to the group sooner than later. Tim Bayer will probably already make a move on Daniel Bakarik sooner than later. Maybe even this lap. As Hugo Nilsson... that is... Look, Miller's fighting Ferry Wagner. Ferry Wagner makes a move around the outside. Lucas McGinty nearly spins around. Say applies for the Alfa Romeo. We could see it from this beautiful perspective as Arjan Bilbas fights Marvin Moore. Barely has any space. They touch again on the hairpin, but I think that Arjan is now ahead and regained the control of the hard tires. Still lost massive time to top 4. As Tony Ritchie also on the way to make a move on Ryan Grob into turn 1. That is the 2nd place on the Grand Prix for the Alpha Tauri driver, Season 8 champion. Really on a rush, as Kul Pavlakovic now had a mistake, fights Arjan Bilbas. There was a bit of an incident involving Marvin Moore. So this might be involving Arjan Bilbas though. Not sure. However, disaster for the Haas driver. Both of the Aston Martin and Haas reserve drivers today are ahead of the full-time drivers, so that is not the greatest sign. However, we know that Fraser and Marvin have lost due to incidents, probably, or spins, not due to pure pace. Goal is chasing down Jonathan Foss, hopefully, as long as his soft tires are serving correctly. With Nilsson losing 2 places now, going kind of slowly on the DRS zone. Team Bayer is already on the P12, so he's definitely one to watch, maybe even to get into the top 5 later on. However, he has noticed that there is a massive DRS train ahead of him, from 5th all the way to 11th, being led by Quil Pavlakovic as of now. Tony Richer the fastest lap of the race. As there's another spin in turn 1, that is Lucas McGuinty. However, we're focusing on the top 2 fight now. There have already been controversies between these two in Spain in lap 1, mainly caused by being free wide with Luke Mills. However, there's already something on the line, and that is the championship of PC F1, and we know these drivers are taking it seriously. With Tony Richer already trying to catch up on the championship on Drake. He's been leading after round 2 of it, but lost it last week, and the gap between these two is now 10 points, just about. Tony Richer using DRS assistance now. But not enough of a gap between him and Drake there is to make an overtake. Let's look at the midfield though, as Team Bayer indeed is making places around here. Maybe it's mainly due to the fact that Julio Figueroa is now out of DRS from the 5th place onwards. However, team has still made it stick and already in the 10th place after an incident involving him and Tony Richer. Let's also see the tires strategies as of now, as there's 3 drivers on soft tires. These 2 of them have started on the soft tires. These are Quil Pavlakovic and Ferry Wagner. 2 more drivers started on mediums. These are Sean Van Helden and Lucas McGuinty. Fraser Robertson fights Hugo Nilsson for position number 14. Has a little bit of a slide. Hugo Nilsson sounded carefully down inside and has decided not to send it on the end of the day. And they both are being watched by Daniel Bakalik in case something happens. However, this time Tony Richer has the eyes on Drake and is definitely closer than the Alfa Romeo driver. And may go for a move down the inside. He's going for a big dive into the inside, but that did not work from the AlphaTauri driver, and Drake Dempsey keeps the lead of the Grand Prix. That was a big send from Tony Richer, but it did not work. Considering the ER rules, this might be penalized, but it will definitely be looked at by Rabbi Chmelko, unless there's no report involved. However, this one was a big send on the inside from the Season 8 champion. Looking at the background, or actually the back of the grid, Sean Van Helden fights Lucas McGuinty for position number 12. Lucas McGuinty also known for quite a big send, like the one on Hugo Nilsson lap 1, which surprisingly worked despite from how far it was. Lucas McGuinty tries to look for space to make a move on the Haas, as the Belgian driver has got no DRS, and that means Lucas McGuinty will have better chances of making a move, and he's done it for position number 12. Next up is Julio Figueroa. Team Bayer already on the 10th, but cannot quite catch up to Jack Harrington, as we'll be looking on Aaron Bilbas, side by side with Quil Pavlakovic. We'll make a move down the inside. These softs are probably wearing out quite massively now. Aaron Bilbas made a move into turn 1, corrected it into turn 3, and has done it. I would also wonder if Tony has a bit of a wing damage, considering that send on Drake. Thankfully for the Alfa Romeo driver, it did not work, and thankfully for us, there was no major consequences. Luke will be also looking for a move on Kul Pawlakovic. This time he's actually having a decent chance to get a point. Potentially with a 6th place finish. As I've seen a position change not quite a long time ago, a bit of seconds ago, as Team Bayer has already rejoined the DRS. Train started to the 5th place. There's a spin that is Daniel Bakali causing kill flags in turn 3 that have become non-existent shortly after. I see an Alfa Romeo being under pressure from the Mercedes driver, and that is Ferry Wagner, who's being overtaken by Jack Harrington. Not quite yet, however this might happen right now with Jack Harrington thankfully not losing a place at least, but he blocked Team Bayer a bit to be honest completely. Ferry Wagner is going to stay on 8th for at least one more DRS zone unless something major happens. Jack Harrington, is he going to send it down inside? No. We know he's tried to do it on one of the Aston Martins on the sprint race, however, it did not quite work, so thinking better of it, there is an incident, that was probably something between McGuinty and Van Helden now, with the Alpine driver being spun round. However, coming back to battle for the position number 8, not only Jack Harrington has to watch out to make a move on Ferry Wagner, which is clean, but also has to defend from Team Bayer, so not in the best situation after all. Unless he overtakes Ferry Wagner right now, he might be overtaken by Team Bayer as well, who's using ERS on the Mercedes driver. Think of a move. Ferry Wagner is now overtaken by Jack Harrington. Team Bayer thinks better of it, but Ferry Wagner goes wide and loses 2 places in one go. And he might lose a 3rd one to Julio Figueira. These soft tires are not paying off anymore. As Julio was looking for a move, but we'll focus on Team Bayer versus Julio Figueira right now. We know that what happened in lap 1 for Team Bayer. Will he go for a move down the inside? No, thinks better of it as Ferry Wagner is spun on the entry of Sector 2 and is now under pressure from Shane Van Helden. Now Team Bayer, we thought he would go for a move down the inside. He's got a little bit of a touch between him and Jack Harrington. Half spin for the Mercedes. Definitely a touch there. Push to pass being used. And maybe investigated by the stewards very soon after the Grand Prix. I still think there's a massive chance that the top 10 will look like it is right now. Maybe with a couple of other changes, but the top 10 when it comes to the drivers who are in it will stay the same. Tony Ritchie will not go for a move down inside now, but Luke Mills will. Without sending in necessarily, but makes a position Kul Pawlakovic on a straight. Jack Harrington tries to make a revenge on Team Bayer, and this time he half spins again. Overtaken by Julio Figueira right now. But the Portuguese driver is letting him pass, thinking that Jack will try to make a move again. As Jonathan Foss nearly spins on the entry of the DRS straight, the 2nd DRS straight. Thankfully keeps the car running, but Ryan Grubb is nearly out of the DRS from Tony Ritchie now, and slides as well, which definitely makes him lose the DRS touch from Tony Ritchie, unless he makes a perfect corner. Now he does not. So he's out of DRS now. Jonathan Foss may think there's a chance to make him move on the 2nd podium in a row, and that would be 3rd place again. The top 2 looks like running away now, as Julio Figueira swapped places with Jack Harrington. This time it's the Portuguese driver being let go by Mercedes to potentially make a move on Team Bayer, or at least get a little bit closer, as Team Bayer, he'll probably have an easy job with Kul Pawlakovic on the soft tires, which are really worn right now. Another fight going on is on the midfield with Lucas McGuinty versus Shane Van Helden for position number 11. However, these two drivers, I believe, are going to just about stay in their places, but we know Lucas McGinty uses the only assist allowed in this tier, that is racing line of course, and Shine doesn't, which could be visible right now, with Lucas McGinty looking for a place to actually send it on the inside or the outside of Cheyenne. He makes the move on the DRS straight, Cheyenne Van Hilden backs off. And in the meantime, Jonathan Foss goes to position number 3. On Ryan Grob, McLaren drivers, despite a great sprint, are now losing places in the main race. Even though Tim Bayer, it wasn't completely his fault. As he's now got Will Pawlakovic overtaken, I believe that will happen sooner than later. Then Luke Mills. As there's a little bit of a touch between these two drivers. I wonder if Tim Bayer has any wing damage, considering the amount of touches he's gone through. The minor contacts that are happening between him and the other drivers, Tony Ritchie, now Will Pawlakovic, it was Jack Harrington earlier on. As Tim Bayer does not decide to send it, now he's going for it, he's going down the inside on Will Pawlakovic on the exit of the corner, side by side with the Williams driver, and now makes it stick for position number 7. Great move from Tim Bayer. Maybe there was a little bit push to pass, but it got executed perfectly. No damage for neither of the drivers, so this is another reason why. However, we'll move to Tony Ritchie versus Drake Dempsey. It's on again now. Drake Dempsey decides to cover the inside line. Then will do it into turn 1. And will Drake Dempsey go out of it as the leader of the Grand Prix? They are still will do it into turn 3. The championship leader fights the champion of season 8. However, Drake Dempsey defends the position really well indeed and stays on P1. But that was really a big warning sign from Tony Ritchie, proving that he can go for a victory of today's race. After a bit of a struggle in Spain, 14 points though. But considering one of those 4 was for pole position, one of those 4 was for fastest lap, and 2 more have been given thanks to Lucas McGinty's penalty. Well, 5th place in the race wasn't the best result. But Tony Ritchie looking now to make a move on Drake to take the lead of the race. Still not the lead of the championship though, because the gap between them increased considering Tony's 4th place in sprint and Drake's pole position, so that is plus 4 points to the championship for Drake. That makes it 14. So Drake would have to finish like 5th in this race to make it go equal for at least this weekend. Yellow flags in Sector 2 are caused by Ferry Wagner spinning round on the exit of turn 8, that is, I believe. The gap between Tony and Drake increases now a little bit. It's now 5.5 tenths of a second. Drake Dempsey, plenty of ERS to use he has. Yes, he's got 57%. And Tony Ritchie has got barely 15, so that is also an advantage for the American. Shane Van Helden this time is under pressure from Fraser Robertson as we're moving into the midfield. Shan not being the fastest on track definitely, but doing it clean. Even though he's involved in plenty of battles, we didn't see any major touches. Maybe there was an incident between him and McGinty, but we'll see about that in the steward's room. As Robertson, despite using no short shifting, which is pretty overpowered technique in Formula 1 games, getting closer and closer to Shan, probably making a move on the next DRS zone. You can see that he's not quite behind him now. He's looking for spaces. As there was a little bit of a touch between these two, Shan Van Helden got a bit of a moment on the exit of the final corner. But now Shan has been overtaken successfully by the Aston Martin driver, taking a redemption for the sprint and qualifying. Will Pawlakovic joined the race on position number 14. Marvin Moore, 5-second time penalty for spinning in the pit lane, not crossing the white line. Not the greatest weekend so far. That was a decent season opener for him, despite the 5-second time penalty in Bahrain, where he finished 7th on track. But due to the 5-second penalty, he finished On position number 10, and as I've been speaking about it, looks like Ferry Wagoner has lost his front wing. Daniel Bakalik probably did as well. And these two drivers have called a full safety car, which will stack the grid again as Tony Ricci with Drake Dempsey are both going to the pit lane. Remember what happened in this place in PSF5 tier, with Elliot Parker going for a very risky move on the inside of the pit lane entry, actually sending it correctly. Iron Bus goes to the pit lane, Lucas goes to the pit lane, Team Bayer into the pit lane as well. Both Mercedes drivers will also visit the pit crew. That will be a proper double stack. Will there be overtaken by Lucas Magenty? I don't think so, because Lucas Magenty also enters the pit lane. We have to remember that this is that the pit lane speed limit is not 80 but 60 kilometers per hour. Most of the drivers have opted to that, apart from Jonathan Foss, who's also overtaken Drake Dempsey on the safety car. Now that is interesting, even though he's got a 5-second time penalty for spinning in the pit lane. Marvin Moore has an opportunity to serve one, but he does not. He prefers to stay on track. And we can also see one of the drivers, that is Drake, trying to burn off the fuel he can with the fuel load that he has. As most of the drivers have already rejoined the queue, we can see the position changes regarding the safety car pit window. We can see that Jack Harrington has overtaken Team Bayer, Kul Pawlakowicz has overtaken Julio Figueira. And of course, the most important one, Jonathan Foss has overtaken Drake Dempsey. That doesn't help Drake's championship. The gap between these two now is 10 points. Reduced, of course. So it was 11 after qualifying, 14 after the sprint. Now it's going to be 4. Let me know if my calculations are correct. Julio Figueira decides to pit yet again. That may be for the hard tires for the remainder of the Grand Prix. No, it's for mediums. You can also see the tire strategies. Only 2 drivers decided to stay on to pit for the softs, surprisingly. And these are Fraser Robertson and Daniel Bakalik. Aston Martin with a bold strategy. Very, very bold strategy. As we can see, Daniel Bakalik, well, only wanted to play with us a little bit and has decided to pit for hard tires for the remainder of the race. They are just 7 laps old, and he thinks they will probably survive. As why do you free both cars drivers and Julio Figueira try to make a free wide? What are you doing in here? That is the question. We'll stay with the safety car, Berminander on track for 1 more lap. As we need to wait for Daniel Bakalik to rejoin the pack. Fairhaven are losing time on safety car conditions. What is going on? It's been very close. Now he's losing time. Hugo Nilsson on position number 15. You can see how close he is to Julio. as Shane Van Hilton is out of the race. What happened there? He's crashed out on the entry of turn 2. I don't know what's going on, but the PCF2 driver, who's been doing very well in this race so far, this may not be the best place, but for a PCF2 and debut driver, well, that's quite decent. However, what just happened here? This is the question, as Cheyenne has probably lost it and crashed. Safety car is in this lap now as we are approaching sector 3. So looks like the marshals have cleared Cheyenne's car very quickly. That leaves us with 17 laps of racing. This time Tony Rich is under pressure from Jonathan Foss, but Jonathan Foss, even if he wants to win this race, he needs to get away from Tony by 5 seconds. Also, Daniel Bakalik has spun around on the restart. There's a bit of a mess between Figueira and Moore, however Tony Rich quite a dynamic restart, quite a quick one. You can see him already being on 120 km per hour. I think he's going to start really soon. The Dutch Grand Prix is again underway as we're waiting for Tony to restart the race. He's still not doing it. Now he's doing so. We remember what happened in PSF2 with a spin of Shimon Jacques on the safety car restart. However, Tony Rich handled it very well. Drake Dempsey already sends it on Jonathan Foss on the inside. And now has one man to focus on. That is Tony Rich, to overtake him as soon as possible. There's plenty of fights in the midfield, as there's still only one DNF in this race. That is Shane Van Hilden. Daniel Bakalik is into the pit lane to change her front wing. However, Tony Rich keeps the lead. There is a fight between Harrington and Bayer for position number 7. Team Bayer looking for redemption after what happened to him on lap 1. As Team will probably be looking for him over the inside or outside. No, maybe not on this corner particularly, but he's going to send it only half sent on the inside line as he spins Jack Harrington around, and that may be actually Team's fault. I was the steward. I would definitely have a look again on this, but not the greatest situation for Jack Harrington, who's dropped down to P15. I hope he has no wing damage and can fight back. Drake Dempsey 6 tenths behind Tony Rich, 7 tenths behind Tony Rich, so not the greatest situation, but consider that he's not having the 5-second time penalty, which is potentially being given for the incident on lap 1 or whatever. As Faye Wagoner, Drake's teammate, is into the pit lane, overtaken by Jack Harrington already. I think Jack Harrington will rejoin the DRS chain sooner than later, which will be then separated, as you can see. Kul Pawlakovic again being a roadblock, as Mitch Snape said in the chat, with the DRS chain he's creating. Already a second behind Team Bayer. Unfortunate for Jack Harrington, but I believe with the drivers he has to overtake, he might have a chance to get back into the point. As Ryan Grubb is really close on Jonathan Foss. Remember Ryan losing pace throughout the laps before the safety car. But not quite now, as he's really close. 0.2 of a second. I think he might be going for a move soon. He knows he might have a guaranteed podium with Jonathan's 5-second time penalty, which is most likely not to be appealed. He's using all of the ERS he has. Jonathan Foss does the same, but I think Ryan Grubb may just set it down inside, halves and only. Drivers looking for overtakes on Circuit Zandvoort. Sometimes seem a little bit desperate, to be honest, but thankfully in the majority of the cases we limit to the half cents, just looking for the space, not actually making a move. Lucas McGinty very close behind Kul Pawlakovic, but when will he make a move? That's the other question. Well, Kul can now say he's on the hard tires, and this is the reason why he's losing time to the top 7. Even though he's doing it quite again. Jack Harrington has rejoined the DRS pack. The first man under DRS pressure from Jack is cold. Gunnarsson, as Lucas Magnetti has been overtaken by Lucas Magnetti is losing quite a lot of places, and looks like he's got wing damage. Julio Figueira making a move on Fraser Robertson. Fraser Robertson spins, and that was really, really close from crashing. Carrington makes a move on Gunnarsson, but I believe he may be asked by the stewards to give it back, because he's overtaken Hugo under not the safety car, but yellow flag conditions. Was it fully Julio's fault? I mean, like 50-50, to be completely honest with you. Would have to rewatch it again. The most important news of the day: Jake Dempsey closing on Tony Ricci, maybe going for the lead of the race, and maybe a victory in total. Ferreira gonna enter the pit lane again. And this time, it is the end of the race for the Alfa Romeo driver. Jake Dempsey not using ERS, knowing that Tony has the full battery on himself, so no point essentially. Knowing that he might go for a move on the final laps of the race, and knowing that sand from like lap 6, we know it's possible. As let me prove my suspicions. No, they will not be proven. Lucas Magnetti has got no wing damage. At least this is what we have been received with. This is what we have received at least. Jonathan Foss still under pressure from Ryan Grubb. And Darian Bilbas under pressure from Team Bayer. Will Pawlakowicz is losing 2 places now in one go, as Marvin Moon and Julio Figueira both making a move on him. There's a chance for Mercedes scoring points today, and that is Julio Figueira at least. Yellow flags are caused by Daniel Bakalik. By far not the greatest result for the Aston Martins. They 14th and 15th. Could have been better. Jack Harrington really close on Lucas Magnetti, maybe going for a move anytime soon, considering that Lucas is nearly out of the DRS touch. He will still have DRS because it's 8.5 tenths. However, not the best situation for the Irish. The clouds are appearing on the track though, but no rain. At least this is what we have been told about by Jake Dempsey and the other drivers. Jake Dempsey was the first to spread this information. But a bit of clouds are appearing definitely. Jake Dempsey, fastest lap of the Grand Prix now, as we say about him. Julio Figueira makes the move despite having no ERS on Marvin. And that has been successful with 8th place for the Mercedes driver. Now he has to try and rejoin the pack, which is top 7, fighting for essentially the win today. However, the 2 main actors of today's show, which is called Ero Pc F1 Dutch Grand Prix, are Tony Ricci and Jake Dempsey, the championship winner of Season 8 and the championship leader of Season 9. After 3 rounds, he may be going to making his gap even bigger, with if he wins the race, of course. Not using any ERS right now, but we've seen him using a bit of ERS earlier on, as last time we've checked it was around 65%, now he's using a little bit, and he's got 44%. Tony Ricci have a bit of a moment. They're going to soon lap Daniel Bakalik, but it doesn't matter for now. Jake Dempsey has DRS on Tony Ricci, and will not use ERS, but still have enough power on the straight line to make a move on Tony Ricci, who's going to send it down the inside. No, he's only having a half look. The leader of the race has changed. Jake Dempsey, after winning in qualifying and then winning in sprint, is now leading the race all over again. As Daniel Bakalik, well, at least you've been broadcasted to the television for a while. It was fun while it lasted, but Daniel Bakalik has now been loved by half of the grid already. He's letting past all the drivers, like a wise man should do when he's getting blue flags. Some sort of rule that plenty of drivers tend to forget about, thinking, well, they ghosted, so they can just move on and race on and continue. But it's not really true. Will Pawlakowicz again losing 2 places in one go. This time it's to Jack Hamilton and Lucas Magnetti. Not the greatest situation for Quill. So we'll be moving back to the two leaders of the race. Drake Dempsey has 40% of ERS. Tony Chuck had to use a little bit. Now he's using all the power. He wants the lead of the race right now. But will it happen? This is the question. Tony Ritchie is approaching Drake Dempsey, who's covering the inside line. Tony Ritchie will go on the outside, round the outside into turn 1. But I don't think he's going to take the lead. No, he's getting it. He's going for it. He's going on the inside into the hairpin. Side by side from 10-4. This is proper racing between these two drivers. This is the proper championship fight. However, Drake Dempsey is going to just about defend the place. That is really, really close. It was a wheel to wheel throughout 3 corners. Drake Dempsey, Tony Ritchie is not going to give this one up. But I don't think the move is just happening. Is happening just yet. Tony Ritchie, well, he's got the chance. He wasted nearly all of his ERS. Not enough to make a move on Drake. Even though he was going around the outside turn 1, which then turned to around the outside into turn 2 and 3, but the inside into turn 4, which could be the most important. But Drake Dempsey got a better traction on the exit. Doesn't really matter for now. You can see how close Tony is to Drake Dempsey. That is really, really close. This is the proper championship fight. We know that if Tony wins this race, the gap is being reduced to around 5 points, and he's going for it on the inside this time. Drake has no response. They are side by side into turn 1. Tony has no ERS and retakes the lead of the Dutch Grand Prix. That was quick, to say the least. Tony tried on the previous lap to take the lead, had to wait one more. Now he's the leader of the Grand Prix again. We know the incident between him and Tim Bayer may be under investigation. However, on track, he's winning, at least for now. Behind him, Jonathan Foss is about to lose DRS from these two drivers. He's on 9/10 of a second, still within it, but it might not be enough very soon. 8/10. Now it's going to be probably 7/10 sooner than later. It is, considering the fact Drake and Tony are fighting and they both have no ERS to deploy and no battery to play with. Drake Dempsey tries to fight Tony Ritchie for the win of today's race, and well, he will not do it on this DRS straight probably, but Tony Ritchie has got a bit of a moment going on the curb kind of wildly. Drake Dempsey will use a bit of DRS, probably not using DRS as Tony Ritchie has none of it. The gap is being reduced to around 0.2 of a second now. As Tony Ritchie having a bit of a moment into turn 4. Marvin Moon and Lucas McGinty are also fighting for position number 9. As we'll check on that, there is a contact between these two drivers in the midfield. But I think, well, there's another contact, but thankfully both have gone out safely. Lucas McGinty lagging a little bit, this time actually losing a place to Marvin Moore. Lalaban is trying to recover after the disaster of the first half of the race. Now he's on in. He's got the 5-second penalty though, which will push him out of the points as of now. And I'm wondering, what if Frank Grupp actually wins this race? Because Jonathan Foss, we know he has got a 5-second time penalty, but if Drake and Tony will waste more time fighting on, there will definitely be a chance for McLaren or a Ferrari driver. Harrington spins round on lap 30. I don't know if it was on his own, but I believe so. Drake Dempsey, well, he definitely has a bit of a straight line speed setup. Comparing to Tony, that is at least. You could see he was closing up on Tony on the DRS, on the straight, twisted straight, as I name it. Even considering the fact that Tony has no ERS to use now. Drake Dempsey is using a little bit of it, staying 3/10 behind Tony, but I think if there is a move happening, it's going to be on to the last lap of the race. As meanwhile on the background, on the back of the field, Fraser Robertson providing... No, he's being provided by Daniel Bakalik with DRS a bit. Maybe for the fastest lap purposes. Iron Bus being overtaken by Team Bayer right now for position number 5. As it was really close between these two, however, the move has been made by the McLaren. And this time, Iron Bus drops to 6, and if Ryan Gropp overtakes Jonathan Foss after penalties at least, we will see a McLaren, Ferrari. That is 4 now. Lap 31 of Dutch Grand Prix, Drake Dempsey still right behind Tony Richard, still not making a move, still probably saving DRS wherever possible. As one of the Aston Martins, that is a spin, of course, also from one of the Aston Martins. However, Drake Dempsey trying to save battery, and Jack, we know you're in the chat, but if you can just finish the race, that would be cool. I would show a thumbs up if it was a camera. If there was a camera anywhere. But you know what I mean. As we're moving into lap 32 of today's Grand Prix. Drake Dempsey will just close up on Tony Ritchie. There's another spin from the Aston Martin driver. I don't believe it will call the safety car though. Unless there's some heavy debris around. But no. McEntee fights more. Into turn 1. There is a little bit of a forcing off track, but I don't think quite significant enough to penalize it. Especially considering the nature of the corner. Yellow flags are again caused by the Aston Martins. As Tony Richards, even though he keeps the lead of the Grand Prix, remember there might be some incidents reported today. Like Tony, team lap 1, team Jack, safety car restored. Or Tony's big send on Drake, as Drake was just looking for a space on the inside. It all depends on Tony having a moment, but he does not. So Tony will keep the lead of the Grand Prix into lap 33. But we can truly say the championship fight is on now. I hope it will end in a better way than the PS F1 battle in Season 8 did. We never know, but I hope for better outcome, regardless of who wins. As Drake Dempsey, 30% of ERS. Is it enough to make a move? Maybe if he was using it late on the straight. Tony Richards has also regained a little bit of a battery because these two drivers are not fighting as of now. Unlike a couple of laps ago. Drake Dempsey again having DRS on Tony, but not enough to make a move. It's only 3 laps to go. The time is ticking, the time is running. There is a contact between these two, however, Tony Ritchie keeps the lead of the race. Drake thought he got the better exit speed on the inside, but Tony covered it well. There was a little bit of a touch, having no major consequences. As Ryan Gropp puts Jonathan Foss under pressure as well. As these two drivers, the Ferrari and the McLaren, may be interested in the fight as well. Drake Dempsey was thinking of a move on the inside of Tony Ritchie in this place. That was really, really bold. But nothing happening yet as Tony goes quite consistently. It's another spin for the Aston Martin driver. We don't even know which one, to be completely honest with you. Because we're looking at the fight between the leaders of the Grand Prix. Harrington is out of the session. I don't know what happened there. But probably some issues. as Drake Dempsey is about to maybe even take a lead right now of this race. He's using the RS on Tony Ritchie, and on lap 35 he retakes the lead of the Grand Prix. However, Tony will not give this one up. He's sending it down the inside there. Will to will again into turn 1. There might be something happening. Does the will to will again? Still slide by slide. But Drake Dempsey has the better line right now and should take the lead of the race. However, it's not done quite yet. Drake Dempsey now leads the Dutch Grand Prix. However, Tony, you can see he's just a 10th behind. He may be looking for a side-by-side battle into turn 7. This is not over. But, yeah, this time it's actually over. Tony Ritchie is now losing 0.2 of a second and will have to wait for maybe one more chance on the last lap of the Grand Prix. Drake Dempsey decided not to waste any more time regarding this battle and actually is going for it. He's actually going for the win, for the second win of the season. This time, it will be a Dutch Grand Prix and also a second consecutive victory. Drake Dempsey has around half of a second of the lead over Tony Ritchie. Is it enough to not have any pressure being on him for the final 4 kilometers of this race? Drake Dempsey leads the way by 0.6. No chance it's happening as of now. It was the perfect moment to make a move. Ryan Gropp and Team Byro also having no ERS at all and no battery to play with, so Krabi will finish this race as it is right now. Hugo Nilsson goes for the fastest lap as well, as one of the Aston Martin drivers, that is probably Bakalik. Yep, letting past the top 6. Tony Ritchie losing all of the time in the world right now, with being nearly a second behind. If he loses the RS on the final straight, that would open up a chance for Jonathan Foss, to be completely honest. But it's probably not. Drake Dempsey, the advantage is too big. It's nearly a second, and that means for the first time in the season, there's a driver who wins twice, and it's twice in a row. Drake Dempsey wins the Ero Dutch Grand Prix ahead of Tony Ritchie, and both McLaren drivers, Ryan Gropp is ahead of Team Bayer. Then we've got Arjan Bilbas, who outscored Jonathan Foss for the first time this season. Luke Mills finishes 7th. Then we've got Julio Figueira, Marvin Moore, Lucas McGinty, and Kul Pavlakovic. Let's see if Hugo Nilsson can go for the fastest lap. He's 6 up on his lap time. The current fastest lap is 12.3, so we'll see the delta right now. It's going to be 1.3 seconds. It is doable. It all depends on Sector 3. Will Hugo Nilsson get that one more point on into the championship for the Red Bull? Not the greatest beginning of the season, but the 7th place for Luke Mills should do to recover for the rest of the campaign. As Hugo Nilsson crosses the line right now, that's the fastest lap of 12.1. Fraser Roberts is not going for it, so he's safe about it. By the way, nice sequence, as you can see. The top 8 finished on the mediums. 9th to 11th is on the hards, and the rest on softs. Fraser Robertson crosses the line on the 13th. Fantastic performance from the top 3 drivers. Ryan Gropp on the podium yet again, but Drake, for the first time in the season, is the 2 times race winner. If we include the sprint, that's 3 times. Fantastic race overall from the top 2. Despite a couple of controversial moments, we can definitely say the championship fight is on, even though the gap has been enlarged by around 10 points this weekend. So to confirm, Drake Dempsey, 33 points into the board today, 10 more than Tony Ritchie, and 11 more than Ryan Gropp. Then we've got Team Bayer, Arjan Bilbas, Jonathan Foss, Luke Mills, Julio Figueira, Lucas McGinty, Marvin Moore, and Kul Pavlakovic. And of course Hugo Nilsson, but the game decides not to count our fastest lap point, which you can get if you just finish the race, regardless of the position. Let's see the sprint results as it's Drake Dempsey, Ryan Grob, Team Bayer, Tony Ritchie, Viant Foss, Arjen Wilbas, Luke Mills, Marvin Moore, Kurt Pawlakowicz, and Lucas McGinty in the top 10. Outside of it, Figueira, Robertson, Nelson, Van Helden, Bakalik, Hankton, and Wagner. And in the main race, Drake Dempsey has won ahead of Tony Ritchie, Ryan Grob, Team Bayer, Arjen Wilbas, Jonathan Foss. Luke Mills, Julio Figueira, McGinty, and Pawlakowicz rounded up the top 10. Then we've got Marvin Moore and Hugo Nilsson, Fraser Robertson, Jack Hamilton, Dino Bakalik, Ferry Wagner, and Sean Van Helden. Only 2 penalties have been given this race, both for spinning at the pit lane, and these have been given to Marvin Moore and Jonathan Foss. There was no, I'm saying this, no penalties for exceeding track limits. Talk about racing standards, at least that way, because we know there were controversial situations. As drivers will be invited into the conference room right now, you could definitely hear the Discord notification going on. As we welcome the first man. To win twice this season. Drake Dempsey, after a fantastic fight with Tony Ritchie, all race long, has done it. Gets 34 points today to the championship and makes his championship lead even bigger. Tell us how you feel.
Yeah, I mean, it feels pretty good. I was kind of scared after the safety car when I got held up by my teammate who had pit when he was nearly lapped. So I lost 2 positions. So I knew it was be difficult to get back up to the lead and have a good enough amount of ERS to be able to hold it. But I mean, the wings I had were a little bit lower than most of the people that were at the front, so I was able to have a good advantage on the straights. Like, I would only be caught by like a tenth or two without any ERS being used on either side, and then likewise I'd catch 2 tenths and like half of that. So it was pretty good on the straights, but then it was harder to keep up in the corners. I knew my dad came into the room actually after the safety car when I had like 70 ERS and said Tony had 100, so I knew I had to make him burn most of it if I wanted to have a chance to win. And luckily I managed to succeed in that, or I would not have won probably, because the lower wings you get to be able to gain more ERS, and so I would win that battle.
Anyway, we could see some support going on from you, and an overall fantastic race from you, as we'll be inviting Ryan and Tony soon onto the conference room. But overall, from the perspective of a commentator, I loved it, to be honest. As awaiting the order of the top 3 drivers. We can already tell you the championship standings in the meantime, if I remember the call actually, because I wasn't checking up on the sprint race results, but if we include the main race, Figueira 4 points, then 2 points for McGinty and 1 for Pawlakowicz. But definitely there will be changes after this race. 0 points for Marvin, that is right. Let's just move on to the sprint before these two join us. As Ryan Grob is already here.
Not wing damage. That's why I was so slow in the first stint. But like I stayed in DRS with Drake, who didn't have damage. At least I don't think so. Like Drake's quali pace is good, but then race pace again was bad.
Ryan Grob actually started speaking this without realizing he's on the conference room.
Wrong chat. Yeah, my bad.
No. Hey, that's mean.
Anyway, finally,
nice.
decent performance from the McLaren from both sides of the
Decent
garage.
performance, yeah. I disagree, but if it looked like a decent performance from the outside, then I guess that's fine.
Still, you can tell second and third in the sprint, third and fourth in the race. That was actually very good from you two, and you can tell us how you feel about it.
Yeah, the sprint was fine, but in the races where we had a bit of carnage, Tony double killing us in turn 1. So that's the new moment. So basically, Tim and I were alongside into turn 1. Then he rear-ended Tim, and Tim spun into me and gave me wing damage. So that's why I had absolutely no race pace in the first stint on hards. And then, there was... I mean, he was at the back of the grid, so... Having done half the race with wing damage, finishing P3 and him being at the back to P4 is good recovery in a way, but without the turn 1 incident, we could have fought for the win for sure. So yeah, happy but not happy, to be honest. But the most important thing, to be fair, is that we gained points on Alfa Romeo. So is Drake in the call?
Oh, I'm right here. Good
Yeah.
race. Good bet on the first.
Tony also almost took you out at turn 1 when he went for one of the dive bombs, I think. Or it looked like he almost did.
Yep. Just a reminder, we're still on stream, but we'll round it up with the championship standings after round 4 before the incident reports, which are definitely appearing. I can definitely see the pink. Yes, that is already 3 reports going on. One of these drivers reported is Marvin Moore. Then we've also got Tim being reported and McGinty with Figueira. However, the championship standings look like this. Currently, Drake Dempsey extends his championship lead, and he's already 21 points ahead of Tony Ritchie. Then we've got Ryan Gropp with 62, Jonathan Foss 41, 28 for Tim Bayer, 26 for Cameron Dowds, 24 for Kul Pavlakovic, 19 for Aynan Bubas, 16 for Kamil Komoń, and 10 for Fraser Robertson. This is how the top 10 of the championship looks like. Next week, we're going to probably one of the favorite tracks in general, for racing at least. That is Austria, Red Bull Ring, without a sprint though.
Oh.
We can definitely see someone is thinking that is an L track.
Austria's a huge L.
Yeah.
The drivers disagree, but I agree to disagree with them because we've seen plenty of dramatic action in the circuit, and we hope to see some more. In
flashbacks from last season.
I don't want to remember when I was on PlayStation in that Austria race. I don't want to remember that.
I don't want to remember last season being hit by Tony.
As we're about to finish the stream, as we told you, next week, 4 PM UK, Austrian Grand Prix. In 2 weeks' time, we have a break because Bahrain Grand Prix, the season opener, all of the celebrations and so on, just to enjoy watching it. But next Sunday, Austria, and we'll see you on the stream. Goodbye.